Okay, excellent.
Welcome to our third lesson in the Kuzari. It's going to prove to be a real exciting a lesson, folks. I believe our topic today is the Bible racist? We're going to get into some of that live with Rabbi Chaim Goldberg, all the way from Jerusalem. We're excited to have you again, Rabbi, and we're honored. But first, I wanted to ask a question about even last week's lesson. There was so much depth in that lesson. But for me personally, there was, it weighed on me all week when we discussed a slight difference between things that are learned internally and things that are learned externally from us, and how the Kuzari likened even the Christian and the Muslims adhere to the voice of a prophet, so to speak. But how do we balance this all out about, we need to focus on things outside of ourselves, not just internally. As somebody who's more scientific bent, I always look at that as being outside of myself. Where is the tangible evidence? Where is the facts? But when it comes to service of Almighty God, there's a tendency to look for or lend an ear to somebody who has prophetic nature. And I know that the more I studied this question all week, I kind of got the idea that, yes, Israel had thousands of prophets during the time of Tanakh, but primarily their mandates came before the prophets, and I just needed to balance that out. Can you elaborate a little bit on where our focus outside of ourselves rather than just internally should be?
First of all, good evening. Good evening from Jerusalem. It's an honor for me also to be part of this project and to discuss with you, Dan. It's already the third time, so it's really exciting. And thank you very much for inviting me for this. And blessing everybody from Jerusalem on behalf of me and on behalf of the Hebrew nation. This is the Parsha, this week Parsha we read that everybody who is blessing Abraham will be blessed. And on the same issue, those who are blessing his kids, his sons, also is going to be blessed. Regarding your question is a very, very deep one, because always we need to have the balance between things from external to us and things from inside us. And to find the right balance, it's a very big question. I think that a part of those issues we are going to address not this week lesson, but the next week lesson. We might even speak about this a bit this week, but I think that mainly we'll speak about this next week lesson.
Okay.
Because it's a question about it's a big question about that the Bible is speaking about when they're speaking about the father after son, and exactly who is the main hardcore of the line that God spoke with since Adam and Noah, and that it came to Abraham and the people around. We do have a very big issue with this thing of the inside and outside. the prophecy is something very deep from inside out, but it's also connected to things that you're getting from outside. And it's something very complicated to explain at this point of time. And you will see when we speak about what's happening tonight with the issues that we said, that it's a very complicated issue, this issue of prophecy, and how to understand this issue. It's not something so easy, I will say.
Well, we won't go into that, I guess, as much. But I mean, yeah, it's just when the people in this day and age, especially here in the West, they're looking to find their way, and they're trying. It's almost a lot of people, it seems, are groping about in darkness, trying to find, what am I here for? What should I be doing? And they're trying to lend an ear to a lot of ideas that maybe should not be, they shouldn't lend their ear to. But then again, you know, how do we know when to tune into true word? And I like the way last week's lesson really, you know, stayed on the topic of going on the history. That in the Kuzari debate, he was talking about how he heard it, how the history was passed on from Moses to to Joshua, to the elders, and how that all was passed down, rather than just begin to talk about the God of the universe, which is an abstract concept. You know, and he built the confidence of the Kuzari king based on factually talking about history. And there's merit, intangibility, and then last week he gave the analogy about the king of India, and being such a far way off, how would he know certain things are real and certain things are genuine? These are the answers that a lot of people, when they're searching for true answers in life, are really asking for, you know, are asking if you know, if this is something they should invest time. There's so many things that it appears are distracting in this world from true, honest living. And we appreciate you taking the time to share with us.
Thank you. I think that if it's possible, something technically, okay? When I hear you, I also hear the live broadcast from 20 seconds ago. So if you can close the live broadcast audio, so I won't hear that, because I'm hearing double things.
You're hearing double. You're getting me feeding back at you.
Yeah, I also hear you from the live.
You're hearing yourself talk as well.
My talk or your talk? I'm hearing also the live streaming.
I see. My computer could be. Let's just turn you down a little. I just want to be able to still hear you.
Oh, it's okay. Only the live broadcast. Try to close down the live broadcast.
Actually, that's not feeding back through the loop. Okay, it seems to be. Yeah, I've got it muted on my side.
Oh, okay.
You sure on your end?
No.
Yeah, full 30-second delay at least.
Yes. Okay. Now let's try to speak again. No, again I can. Okay. You see, now we didn't spoke, and I'm still listening. I can hear everything.
It's not coming from my side, Rabbi.
You know what? Maybe on my side something here. Just a moment. Let me try to see.
You can hit the mute on that on your end, and that way you're not hearing both.
That's it. Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, now. Okay, fine. Now speak, please. It's okay. Now it's okay. Everything is okay.
Well, we've got a couple of visitors, Rabbi. We've got Sheila Etzel with us from Ontario, and we actually have a lovely lady named Solvig from Germany actually tuned in. So we hope that
hi. I know those people.
You do. We want to encourage them to ask some questions. So Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the class, Rabbi. I mean, you lead us, so.
Okay, so we will start with the things that we learned a bit. And as you said before in the introduction, we are going to go inside to a very important question that we asked last week about the issue of racism. And we stayed last time, we stayed with a question about that the Kuzari, the king, asked the Jewish rabbi,
right.
That after we are explaining so nicely that we are referring to things that we have in our life, and it's not something abstract, so it's only referred to the things that happened to the Hebrew nation.
Right.
You know, they went to Egypt, they went out from Egypt. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is our forefathers. Therefore, and this is what the question that he's asking, therefore we are staying with a bit of racism. Now, only the Hebrew nation is related to this issue of the Bible. So he asked, so you want to say that the Bible is only for the Hebrew nation? And the rabbi answered him, yes, it is. It's only for the Hebrew nation. And there, the king was very upset, I would say.
He
was
was
very
saddened,
upset.
no doubt.
He said, I thought that in the beginning you started to speak and you were not logically. After that, you explained yourself a bit. But now you're speaking again, not logically and not something that we like. Now, in the Hebrew translation, it's very... it is a very colorful,
poetic.
How it's saying, it's very poetic what it says. He says, in the beginning your things were very fat, now they're very skinny, and I can't understand you. You know, the issue of fat and skinny, like you can take those words and fill them with a lot of things, a lot of insights. So I want to go inside, if it's possible, that you will put on the broadcast the words that I told you to put on, that I sent you before, and we'll try to see, to understand a bit the answer, because here is the first time we're still putting the few foundations that we can understand why the Hebrew nation
right.
Claim that their belief is the most, I will say, right belief that we have, but we need to put few foundations. And tonight we're going to put one, maybe even we'll manage to put another one, and of the foundation. And please put the first.
I got number 26 to 32 up on the screen. The question, is the Bible racist? Did you want me to read?
Yes, please. Read it, please. Yes.
All right. So you put the subnote, the Bible is racist? Question mark. Al-Kuzari asks, he says, if this be so, then your belief is confined to yourselves. And that seems to be the big point. I know a lot of Christians, they seem to have just taken that Bible and adopted it for themselves. But so that's Kuzari's kind of standpoint. Well, the way he's portraying it, you know, is your belief confined to yourself? And then the rabbi responds, yes, but any Gentile who joins us unconditionally shares our good fortune, without, however, being quite equal to us. If the law were binding on us only because God created us, the white and the black man would be equal, since he created them all. But the law was given to us because he led us out of Egypt and remained attached to us because we are the pick of mankind.
This is enough for you. Just to listen to those words, it's very, I will say, annoying. I don't have other words to say here.
Elitist. Elitist, some people might take it as being elite. Now, I think this is such a big point because I have a lot of conversation here in the West, Rabbi. I even had a response from another rabbi in Jerusalem there about a question on a video about what is available to the Noahide, what is available to the non-Jew. And we seem to have a lot of gur movements here in the West and the Noahide trying to balance it out between what is honestly open and what is God actually given to the Jewish nation? And it's a very, very, very key question, because nobody should really want to take something for granted or profane the holy.
Yeah, so I will tell you that in the last weekend, I had a very long conversation with with a person who is a Noahide from South Africa.
Right.
And he didn't spoke with me for a year and a half, and
Wow.
suddenly he's sending me an article that was sent, somewhere in the world. I think that it started in Israel, but today it's on the internet. And he asked me, how come you are not allowing Noahide people to keep the Shabbos?
Right.
The seventh day. And I told him that there is a very big debate inside the Jewish rabbis, and I referred him to one of my articles in my site that I'm showing. We do believe that every Noahide person, and this is how we read the halachic way of the Rambam, he can do everything that he wants to do. But after he declared that he is a Noahide person, he can do whatever he wants to do. He can he can keep the Shabbat, and he can pray, and he can do everything that he wants to do. There are some Jews, some rabbis who do think that it's not permitted to non-Jews to do those things, but they are not the main core of the Jewish, I will say, identity. And we also have the Consul Rabbinate of Jerusalem that is with us, and they agree
Right.
with how we see those things.
So it's a question of halakha law. Halakha law, the only way I've been able to truly make sense of it is to understand, like a driver's license here in North America. You may not have a driver's license and still be able to drive a car, but if you get pulled over, by a police officer, you're breaking the law. And people should know that up front. And maybe I'm incorrect on that understanding, but it's a very touchy subject. What is permissible and what is not? And like I say, when we have a driver's license here in our country, we can drive without issue, as long as you stay within the rules of the road. I think people need to take a look more at, especially Noahides, need to look at the Torah in that light. Just because you can find a book doesn't mean you should study it, especially without rabbinical explanation.
Okay, so you said here two things, and I want to be a bit more precise. Okay, I will start with the second one. I think that you're more than right when you find a book to study it without some sort of a rabbinical guidance. You might find yourself out of the lines. You will understand the words, but you won't understand exactly what the book is speaking about, because, and I'm also explaining this in one of my courses, we have two main routes how we are passing the inheritance in the Hebrew nation. One is with the Bible that was written down, right, and the other one is by oral, through the rabbinical people that explaining one to each other exactly what we got from our forefathers. But I want to go back to the issue of the driving license, and I think that it's an excellent idea. But let me be much more, I will say, profound with this, or much more exact.
Please.
You know that you can have a driving license only for cars,
right,
but you can have also a driving license for trucks, small trucks,
right,
and driving license for bigger trucks and even semi-trailer trucks.
And an airplane and a helicopter.
Airplane and helicopter, exactly.
Even
but
we have
if you will take
boating licenses, yes.
Exactly. And if you will take someone who knows how to drive a car,
right,
and you will tell him, you know what, go and drive a semi-trailer.
Right.
And maybe he will manage to drive this semi-trailer.
Maybe.
But he doesn't have the license for driving this semi-trailer.
Right.
Or to drive, or to fly this airplane, or to fly this helicopter.
Right.
And so this is where you are losing it. And at the same level, we have in the Hebrew nation, we have all sorts of levels.
Right.
We have the plain Hebrew people like me, and we have the Kohanim, okay, that are much more supposed to keep in rule and to not to do all sorts of things that
Right.
I'm allowed to do, and they are not allowed to do. And on the same level, we have the Noachite people who are driving other different of also of a level of a driving license vehicle, and from the other side, they are permitted to do few other things.
Sure.
But there are things that we are saying to them, listen, this is not in your, I will say, environment. This is not your vehicle.
Right.
So we have all sorts of people, not everybody, not all the people in the world are semi-trailer truck drivers.
Yeah. I know I wouldn't want to try driving a 747 airplane or anything like that. That's for sure.
Oh, okay. And this is on the same level. So we're speaking of that now. We already giving an answer that the Kuzari didn't give yet. In a minute, we'll go inside with this. But this is how he is speaking. He's saying something very interesting. He's saying a Gentile, a non-Jewish person, can join the Hebrew nation.
Correct.
From the other side, there will be always some sort of a gap between him and the Hebrew people.
Right.
But his kids already will be part of the Hebrew nation. And for understanding this in a full, I will say, context, I'm asking you, if it's okay, to continue reading a bit, okay? From 28, continue on.
28, okay. Al-Kuzari says to him, he says, Jew, I see thee quite altered, and thy words are poor after having been so pleasant. The rabbi responds, poor or pleasant, give me your attention and let me express myself more fully. Al-Kuzari says, say what you will. And then the rabbi responds.
And now we're starting to go inside to very important thoughts. That is starting with the thoughts that the old Greek people looked at the nature and managed to see that we have a few levels in the nature. Okay, please read the 31 one.
Okay, 31. The rabbi says, the laws of nature comprise nurture, growth, and propagation with their powers and all conditions attached thereto. This is particularly the case with plants and animals to the exclusion of earth, stones, metals, and elements.
So we have all sorts of minerals or chemical elements that don't have this issue of grow or spray out, but the elements is the first level. Then we have the things that can grow up, and there are a few different things, okay? All the plants, yes. All the biology, okay? All the plants, the animals, people can grow up, and the minerals and chemical elements can't grow up. And this is the difference between the nature that can grow up and the elements. Okay, so 32, please.
Al-Kuzari responds, he says, well, this is a maxim which requires explanation, though it be true.
Okay. Now, let's go on to the 33rd one.
33, the rabbi says, as regards the soul, it is given to all animated beings. The result is movement, willpower, external as well as internal senses, and such like.
Okay, so the difference between the animals and the plants is that the plants is living from the place where they are standing. Right. The animals can go around. So if I will say it like that, if I will take, for example, the carrot, okay, is growing up in his place. The monkey is a carrot that is moving around. Okay, it's more or less, but from the other side, they have also other things, this monkey, because they have also the senses. We don't know exactly that the carrot or the cucumber or something like that, they have senses, or the behavioral dimensions. Those are things that only the animals and also the mankind have those things. So we have already 3 levels. The first level is the minerals, chemical elements. Second level is the plants that can throw out, that can grow up. And the third level that we have is the animals with the senses and behavioral dimension. Okay? And let's go on, please.
Al-Kuzari, he says, this too cannot be contradicted. The rabbi in 35 says, intellect is man's birthright above all living beings. This leads to the development of his faculties, his home, his country, from which arise administrative and regulative laws.
Okay, so this is something. Again, this is something that the old Greek philosophers said, that when we look around, we can see that there are some sort of animals who are living together as groups. Okay, the lions and the monkeys, but only mankind is managing to organize, I will say, a state. Okay, where all of us are living together, and we have laws, and we have the police officers, and we have the court and everything else that is organizing that we can live together. And this is something very unique for the human races in this world. It's for everybody, for the Jews and non-Jews.
Rabbi,
and this is another level. This is another level that we have.
I understand. I understand that we have, mental faculties, and I like the way he says that it's man's birthright above all living beings. I mean, we know that the study of animals, with like the pack mentality of wolves or the pride of lions, the way certain animal species, join together and manage themselves. But that's more a self-preservation instinct, is it not? Rather than what he's talking about, man's birthright above all living beings. It's really leads to the development of his faculties, his home, his country, from which arise administrative and regulative laws. So this is what differentiates us from, say, the biological behaviors or instinctive behaviors of certain species.
Exactly. So we are above. We are one step above only these biological issues that are living together. We are managing to move one step above. This step is also very connected to the behavioral dimension and the moral dimension that we are doing for ourselves. And usually you won't see that the animal won't eat when they are very hungry. That man can stop himself from eating because he wants that other people also will be able to eat. For example, we saw this in the Holocaust, for example, where people that got very low amount of food, not always ate everything, but they also gave to other people.
To keep them alive, yeah.
To keep them alive. And you can see those issues in all sorts of places where man is one step above just the animal level. And so we have, and what we have now, we have 4 levels, okay? If I will summarize it.
Sure.
We have the minerals, okay, the chemical elements. Then we have the plants and the sprout that can grow out. And they can sprout, they can grow up. Then we have all the animals with the senses, behavioral dimensions. And then we have the mankind who is much upper level of everything else. And here we are coming to another step or another question that we can see with 36 and 37.
Al-Kuzari says this is also true. And then the rabbi responds in 37, which is the next highest degree? And Al-Kuzari says the degree of great sages. So he likens great sages even above humanity.
Normal humanity, right? But there is, and I will say this as an introduction, I will say a few words before the 39, there is a very tricky question here, because when you're saying about someone that he's smart, or he's less smart, it's on the same scale, okay? So basically, he didn't answer anything in 38, because we're speaking on the same scale. People are smart, there are people who are more smart, and there are people who are less smart. When we jumped from the monkey to mankind, we jumped from one stage to another stage. But when we are moving from a smart person or from not very smart person to a smart person, we're not jumping we don't have any gap. We're just only on the same scale from one side of the scale to the other side of the scale. So he didn't really give an answer. This El Kuzar.
I see.
You with me, Dan?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, there's no reason that somebody who's smarter than another should ever look down on another person.
Exactly.
We see that in this day and age. I mean, it's a maladaptive social psychological behavior to look down on anyone, and it's amazing, especially any racism or prejudice of any sorts, the way people look down on others. But if somebody truly is a great sage, they know why they know what they know, but they, in this day and age, a lot of people with knowledge take for granted even they think other people know things, and in reality they may not. So I can see why the Kuzari king is mentioning this almost question-like. There's almost rhetorical statement in it.
Right. And this is exactly what the rabbi is answering him. He says to him, listen, you lost it because it's nothing. Read, please, number 39.
39, the rabbi responds. He says, I only mean that degree which separates those who occupy it from the physical point of view. As the plant is separated from inorganic things or man from animals, the difference as to quantity, however, are endless, as they are only accidental and do not really form a degree.
Okay, so this is what I said.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. No, this is exactly what I said before. It's only to say those very smart people, it's only on the same scale. It's not a gap between normal people and people who are very smart.
Quantity.
So he says, so number 40, please read
40,
number 40.
Al-Kuzari says, well, if this be so, then there is no degree above man among tangible things.
And here we are getting surprised with the answer of the rabbi, who is now starting to explain the difference, and we are not speaking about racism at all. So please, let's read number 41.
41?
And we'll explain this and what's happening here. Yes.
The rabbi says, if we find a man who walks into the fire without hurt, or abstains from food for some time without starving, on whose face a light shines which the eye cannot bear, who is never ill, nor ages, until having reached his life's natural end, who dies spontaneously just as a man retires to his couch to sleep on an appointed day and hour, equipped with the knowledge of what is hidden as to past and future, is such a degree not visibly distinguished from the ordinary human degree?
Okay, so we're speaking about a different level, and of course he's speaking about Moses.
Yes.
Moses, we know at the end of the Bible, of the Torah side, that those things exactly was said about Moses, that he we know that he went inside to Mount Sinai to the fire for 40 days. He didn't eat, he didn't stay, and he didn't starve.
Right.
And also when he went down, he had a lot of glory in his face, and nobody was able to look at him. And at the end of his days, when he was 120 years old, he was a stability like he was 20 years old. And he decided exactly the time and the date that he's going to die. And he also spoke about what will be in the future and what will happen. And this is something that is very different, very it's a different stage. It's a different it's like the difference between man and the monkey, between Moses and the other people in the world. Okay, it's a different issue. Please read also number 42, 43, and then I will have a few things that we need to understand from this.
Al-Kuzari responds, he says, this is indeed the divine and seraphic degree, if it exists at all. It belongs to the province of the divine influence, but not to that of the intellectual, human, or natural world. The rabbi responds, these are some of the characteristics of the undoubted prophets through whom God made himself manifest, and who also made known that there is a God who guides them as he wishes, according to their obedience or disobedience. He revealed to those prophets that which was hidden, and taught them how the world was created, how the generations prior to the flood followed each other, and how they reckoned their descendant their descent from Adam. He described the flood and the origin of the 70 nations from Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, how the languages were split up, and where men sought their habitations, how arts arose, how they built cities, and the chronology from Adam up to this day.
Okay, so he's speaking here about a few issues, and from there on he's continuing on. So let's go step by step, because there are a few things that we need to point here at this stage.
Okay.
And first of all, I have a very big question, because he's speaking here about only one person.
Right.
And you can't take one person and say this is a different degree. It's something very unique with this person. You can't say that all of the Hebrew nation is this person. Something is weird with his answer. Okay? Therefore, we need to understand that Moses is just showing a symptom of things that are hidden inside the Hebrew nation. Okay? We in the Hebrew nation are saying all the time that he, first of all, he was born from a woman and from a father.
Right.
Okay? It's very important. He was a man, and everything that he managed to achieve was only because of the Hebrew nation level. And he was part of the Hebrew nation. He didn't get anything from himself. We have in the Hebrew Bible, it says in one point of time that God is saying to him, go down, lech red, go down from your stage. Because your stage, you got it only because of the Hebrew nation. And when they did a sin, you need to go down from your stage. Your stage is nothing from yourself. It's part of this, I will say, full nation, that you are part of this nation. And we know also that we had a lot of prophets, not only Moses. We're speaking about more than 1 million prophets that we had along the history of those 1,200 years in the Hebrew nation when we were in Israel. And this is exactly what he's trying to explain. He's saying, I'm speaking about a very unique person, but it's not only him. He is showing what in the Hebrew nation we know that's happening. And I want to explain another very important thing that people might misunderstand. It's not a personal issue, this issue of Moses, okay? It's something that's connected to the Hebrew nation.
Right.
Therefore, a monkey can't do conversion. But as a personal level, okay, in a personal level, someone who is not from the Hebrew nation can decide to leave his nation and to do conversion. So when we're looking about this in this way, we're starting to understand that we are not speaking about racism.
Right.
We're speaking about, I will say, a spiritual level of the soul. That this Hebrew nation, from one side, a few words, okay? This is Hebrew nation. From one side, is getting from outside, from God, as a nation, as a full nation, the opportunity to become prophets. Okay, that this is a spiritual level, different level. And from the other side, we don't have a different blood. You know, it's not that we have a blue blood.
Right.
Okay, we have, like everybody else, we are living in this world, and everyone who wants to leave his nation and to join the Hebrew nation by doing conversion, he can join us and be part of us, because we are not a different level, okay? If we were a different level, so like the monkey can't become a man, so nobody could become a Jewish. But because we are not speaking about racism, okay, we're speaking about something different that's coming from above us, from God, to this nation, to the whole nation. And you can join this, everybody can join this from one side. From the other side, it is a different, I will say, level by viewing this world in a fifth dimension that
Right.
usually
That's the
people
key.
don't see this world. And this is why we are not speaking about racism, but
Right.
there is a different level. Okay. Now, if you have questions, you
Well,
can ask.
my point was that I see you're trying to remove the self-centered from taking something they should not, even consider. A monkey should not, even attempt to be a man. I mean, he may mimic or do something of that nature, but he's not ordained, if you will, to be a man. He's not called or created for such a thing. And I think when people are lost in this day and age and searching for a purpose, they're almost like a lot of people that are drowning, I hate to say it. And as a person is drowning, they're reaching out for anything. They're trying to grab and hold on to anything. And I think the common theme in this point is that, yes, there are great things for the people of the world in Torah, in Tanakh, but certain things are not necessarily applicable. And it would be self-centered for people to want to take a hold of certain things that are not necessarily from that above dimension. I think, that's why he was differentiating what led Moses.
It's true. This is you're saying true things, and I explained this issue of this fifth dimension in few places in the world already. There is a dimension that we are going inside. Usually people know that we have in this world 4 dimensions. If you say also the dimension of the time that Albert Einstein put inside, but this is why I said also the fifth dimension.
Right.
The issue of good and bad, for example, we are looking about this differently. I can take, for example, this issue that we have with the judge that in the American High Court, the Supreme Court,
right.
Nobody wanted him to become a judge because of something that he did when he was a teenager.
Right.
35 or 30 years, 35 or 37 years ago. In the Hebrew nation, there is the possibility of doing a repeatedness and marking, altogether this behavior, and nobody will remember that because it changed altogether. And this is something that in the Hebrew nation, this repeatedness that we have is very different than the repeatedness that people are speaking in the Christian culture. Okay?
Repentance. You're talking about repentance.
Repentance, yes,
repentance.
Repentance,
okay.
Yes.
So you're talking about what truly blots out transgression as somebody goes forward, when things are not remembered against somebody, versus the merciless
not only not
remembered always.
It's not only not remembered, but it's also they can turn it over to they can turn it over from bad to good. Okay, and how exactly we're doing it in the Hebrew nation? It's the fifth dimension, and this is exactly what Moses. It's something that by itself we need to explain with a long explanation.
Yeah,
I'm just mentioning.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just mentioning this. The main thing is that this is another level that the Hebrew nation is living already in all along the history with this issue of prophecy, and this is what we see with Moses.
Right.
And again, it's something that coming from above us to the nation, to the whole of the nation, and from there, each person of us is getting their life, their unique possibility of living, and every person can join that. Every person in this world can decide to convert.
Yes.
And this is why, from one side, we are not racist at all, because everybody is equal to join the Hebrew nation and become a part of the Jewish nation. And it's separately from the monkeys or from the lions or from any other animals, because all of the people in this world in a different level than the animals. From the other side,
you have a safeguard around
things.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You have a safeguard around something, a fence, right, that protects something, and you're open to share, but that safeguard has to be understood first, right? There has to be a clear understanding, and you guys are protecting that for a reason, and that reason is genuine and from above. And I get that, and I see that. I wish a lot more people would, rather than finger point, because I know that you folks have so much to share. Forgive me for interrupting, Rabbi.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Now let's go inside, please, to the number 43, because I want to say another few words inside into this. Okay.
We read 43. Okay. Go ahead.
We read it already, and this is what it says. I can't see it on the screen so good. Those are some of the characteristics of the
undoubted prophets. Undoubted prophets, for whom God made himself manifest.
Oh, okay. For whom God made himself so manifest. So we're speaking here, and also made known
that there is a God who guides.
No. Just first of all, that God spoke with men.
Right.
Moses, the first thing that he did is showed that God can speak with a lot of people.
Wow.
Because this is something very unique. We're going to speak about this deep issue, another few paragraphs. And this is one of the things that are very unique to the Hebrew nation. Usually, nobody can understand or nobody thought that God, who created this world, will speak with men. Because, the distance is so big, how come he's going to speak with men?
Right.
And we're going to deal with this issue later on. The second thing is that he taught us, Moses, that this God is, and listen good, because it's very different than what the Christian world is understanding, okay? That this God is also made known that there is a God who guides them as he wishes, according to what's written now there?
According to their obedience or disobedience.
Disobedience. Okay, so there are two things here. From one side, according to their obedience or disobedience. From the other side, it's also as he wishes. So, for example, It might be that they are obedience God, but still, because of his wishes, he will throw them out of the land. And the opposite way around also. 100%. It might be that they're disobeying him, but still his wishes is a bit different. And this is something very unique that he's hinting here.
It's life.
It's not only because what you obedience or disobedience.
Right.
It's also with another realm here.
Sure.
Exactly, that God also have his own, I will say, way how to move on the history, and those people are going to carry on along the history. God's presence in this world in those two realms.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing.
That's the
Amazing
hardest lesson for a lot of people to understand. They think if they obey, they're entitled to something. They think if they disobey, especially in this day and age, they're going to be damned. But God has his wishes. Almighty God, Hashem, has his wishes, and he will bend and lead, and there's no way we can escape it.
Yes. I will say here something very interesting with this issue. I'm holding here a watch, a small watch.
Yes.
But once upon a time, there were very big watches, on the wall. But in any case, in this watch, there are all sorts of tiny
mechanisms. Sure.
Mechanisms. Some of them are going with the side of the watch.
Right.
But some of them are going just the opposite side of the watch.
Yep.
And if it won't work like that, the watch won't be in the exact time.
Right.
So we need those who are going with the clock, and we need those who are going against the clock. And this is exactly what's written down here. There is the issue that we need to obey God. But we also need to remember that God also have his wishes, his way of working things here. Some of the things that are working against God, if I'll call it like that, in the opposite way around of the clock, are still part of this big clock that is working in this world, big picture of this world. And this is something that usually people think that it's only connected to, do I obey God or not obey God? No. There are all sorts of other things inside this issue that are connected to what's happening in this world.
But it never justifies somebody doing something evil or wicked.
Excellent note. Of course, nobody is allowing you or me to do bad things.
Right.
How do we say it in Hebrew? In the Hebrew nation, we say God have a lot of things that will go and do his bad things. For example, he have snakes and he have other bad animals. If he wants something bad to happen, you don't need to be part of this issue.
Yeah.
He is obeying us not to murder, not to thief, not to do bad things.
Right.
So we need to do only the good things. And those who are doing bad things, he will use everything for his big picture to drive on to this Messiah to come. But we need to be in a perfect behavior and not to do the bad things. So we went inside a little bit to this very amazing sentence, I will say, in here that he wrote down. Okay? And another thing that is going out here is that he's showing here, it's very interesting because the Kuzari, the Hebrew, I will say, the Hebrew smart person, okay, the rabbi, is speaking with someone who doesn't know at all what is prophecy. What is prophecy? So he's speaking about a lot of affecting issues that happening from this prophecy, okay? One of the affecting issue is that he managed not to eat for 40 days.
Yeah, amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay? He's speaking about this, that he managed to go inside to the fire. Wow, amazing. But this is not the main hardcore. The main hardcore is that Moses managed to speak with the Almighty God who created this world.
Yes.
But for someone that is so far from prophecy, he is speaking only about all those wonderful effects that around this issue, and not with the issue of the prophecy itself. Because we need to lay down few more foundation until he will manage to understand what is prophecy.
Yes. Shall I go on to 44?
Yes, let's go on.
Okay, you've got a subtitle in there. How long does the world exist? And you've got another subtitle, Science in the Bible. Al-Kuzari says, is it strange that you should possess authentic chronology of the creation of the world? The rabbi.
No, look good what happened. Just before you answer, saying the answer of the rabbi, look what happened here. He spoke with him about prophecy, about someone very amazing and everything. And it's so hard for this non-Jewish person to speak about something like prophecy.
Right.
So he captured only the last sentence, said, the chronological time of the world. But between you and me, it's a very small, tiny part of this issue. It's not the main issue yet, okay? But we need to lay down a few foundations.
Sure.
And now we're starting with the first one. So let's start.
45, the rabbi says, surely we reckon according to it, and there is no difference between the Jews of the Kuzari and Ethiopia in this respect. 46, Al-Kuzari.
So all of the Jews, all of the Jews are speaking about the same date till today, by the way, till today, yes.
So it doesn't matter where they are in respect. 46, Al-Kuzari, what date do you consider it at present? The rabbi says, well, at that time it was 4,900 years. The details can be demonstrated from the lives of Adam, Seth, Enosh, Noah, then Shem and Eber to Abraham, then Isaac and Jacob to Moses. All of them represented the essence and purity of Adam on account of their intimacy with God. Each of them had children only to be compared to them outwardly, but not really like them, and therefore without direct union with the divine influence. The chronology was established through the medium of those sainted persons who were only single individuals and not a crowd, until Jacob begot the 12 tribes, who were all under this divine influence. Thus, the divine element reached a multitude of persons who carried the records further. The chronology of those who lived before these has been handed down to us by Moses.
And please read also 48. You know what? I will say a few things here, okay? And then we'll read out the 48 one. First of all, we need to start to lay down, I will say, to put down on the table, to think about the starting point. Okay?
Right.
Starting point is something that is not, I will say, usually to others. The starting point for the Christian is since Jesus was born. So we have before that and after that. The starting point for the Muslims is since Muhammad was born. The Hebrew nation is the only one who is saying there is a starting point of everything. And since then we are starting to count the timing. And the issue of understanding that there is a starting point is
Right.
one of the first foundation that we're trying to put to lay down from the beginning. Another thing that I want to say here, and here we need to be very careful, and it's connected also to a lot of things that you are doing and you are speaking. Okay, the truth is that it might be that this world that we know today
Yes.
is billions of days.
Yeah, billions of
Okay,
years old.
billions of years also. Okay, and this is the truth. And the Torah is not speaking with us about the scientific side.
Right.
Okay, the Torah is speaking with us about the behavioral side.
Sure.
Okay, how to behave, and only after few billions of years there was a man who had the recognition of
Breath
how
of
to
life.
behave morally and not
fish.
morally, and since then we are starting to count. Only from there we are starting to count. So it might be that there was already a lot of things before this man came that we saw him, but it's not reflected to us at all. And when we are speaking about a short amount of time that this world is alive,
Right.
we're speaking about 6,000 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Since the behavioral person is in this world, since the person who is have moral behavior is around,
Sure.
and so since each one of us usually saw his grandfather and will see his grandson, usually I'm speaking, so we're starting to give here some sort of an impact, because if we will speak about millions and billions of years,
It never
so
ends.
each one of us is it never ends, and we are like just a small dust
Yes.
in this world. So we need to speak on the other side, and this is exactly what the Bible is speaking about. The Bible is speaking about the moral issues.
Sure.
So only when man started to be moral and started to understand what's happening here and started to behave morally with himself, with his friends, since then the Bible is starting to speak. And this is the beginning point of everything. Before that, it might be that we had, as we know today, billions of years. And all those years is not reflecting us. It's not connected to us, because we are speaking only about things that are a bit more moral, and we can have the behavior, we can adapt the right behavior for continuing on. And this is exactly what he's speaking here. From one side, we know exactly to speak or to say what happened few hundred years before Moses came. And we know exactly the first moral behavior man that we know,
Yes.
and his son and everybody else. From the other side, we know that from Jacob, it wasn't by on the personal level, but it was already on a nation level. Okay,
Yeah.
all of his sons started to be part of a nation, and all of their kids were inside this nation. And this is what we said before, that Moses grew up in this nation.
Right.
And when he grew up in this nation, this is something that is unique to this nation with this behavior. And most of the people in our world are very living in a lot of contradiction, because they're saying to themselves, in the science side, we know that the world is very, very old.
Right.
But in the Torah side, the world is very new. So
Sure.
who is right? Those are two different realms that are speaking one with each other.
In my studies, I've been doing a lot of studies. I know you've seen my film and things of that nature, but I've been doing some deep studies in the Neolithic period and age. I've even had some debates with a couple of rabbis trying to share and get to the bottom of it. And really what it comes down to is this is what's passed on to them. This is their tradition. I believe that their tradition, the text there that's been passed on to them, does not change, will not change, and is preserved specifically for a purpose. But I do believe that that aligns a lot more with the modern day evidence that has been discovered, especially in the last 50 or 100 years. There's so much more evidence out there that is growing. And I believe that Hashem is doing a wonderful work of bringing humanity to this understanding in a greater light. But I liked the fact, and I think this was one of the reasons why I began to embrace Noahide after I met you, is because you were open scientifically in the sense that, hey, this is not dogmatic that like a young earth creationist Christian believes. There's some fundamentals, mentalist creationists that I ended up having a lot of arguments and debates with for years while I was a Christian, and they collided. It had to be this way or get out. It had to be that way or get out. And I found that wait a second, here's this evidence, begin to look at it, that you folks, the Jewish nation, has never had this stigma, even though they've had the preservation of the texts. And I like the way the Judah HaLevi states this chronology, who lived before these, it's been handed down to us by Moses. This is what we received. This is what we passed on. This is what's recorded. And leave it at that. I think there's great depth there, though, still to be discovered.
Is it true? I must say also that I got it also from my rabbis, okay? Right. Especially Rabbi Cook, and he wrote down those things. I'm not saying here things that I'm saying things that I got in my heritage from my rabbis, and this is how who taught us to look at those things like that was the Rambam, okay, right. In his great book, what we call the Moreh HaNevuchim, one of his books that was 400 years before Copernicus.
Yes.
And he said like that. He said it might be that the world is standing and all of the stars are going around the world, and it might be also the opposite way around, that the world is turning around and everything is standing and only our world is turning around.
Yes.
We don't care if you will say it in this way or in this way. The Judaism won't fall.
Right.
Because the Judaism is speaking
That's
about
the key point,
something, something else. And also, and he said it like that, and he wrote it like that. And on the same level also, when all of those new theories, nothing there is, provable in this level that, maybe another 100 years from now, people will think, or the science will think that it's a bit different. It might be that they will find it that's a bit different. It's okay. But the truth is that it doesn't neglect, right. It doesn't refer the Hebrew statements, because the Hebrew statement is dealing with the issue of morality. And since when we saw the man is starting to behave moral,
yes,
and since then the Torah or the Bible is connected to us, reflecting us. And until then, when we had all the dinosaurs and other things, the Torah wasn't relevant because it's not connected to anything that is related to moral behavior. The dinosaurs were only animals. So maybe, probably we had those things in this world, but the Torah wasn't for those ages. It's only for our ages. So for one side, we have the time that the world started.
Yes.
From the other side, it doesn't reflecting at all the scientific theories that we have today.
It's not going to change the Hebrew nation. I love the way that to me is the sign of that fifth dimension influence. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that regardless of the evidence being uncovered, the text remains the same in Scripture. It's just phenomenal. Yeah.
Yes.
Shall I continue with 48?
No, I think that the 48 we will leave this for next week.
Okay.
Okay. And we will finalize here that we spoke about two things, about the racism issue and the issue of the age of the world.
You're
Those
right.
are two big issues that we spoke tonight.
Big
And
ones.
we're starting to put the foundation of starting to realize that there is also, I will say, starting point for everything. We are laying down that there is a starting point for everything, and this starting point needs to come to the maximum beginning that we know, and we will speak about those issues not next week, another 2 weeks from now. Okay?
All right, so we're going to take a week off next week because you're tied up, but then we're going to come back for our fourth installment in 2 weeks, folks. So if you're listening, that's 2 weeks today. I'll post it all on social media. Once again, Rabbi, I think you really touched on some key points. I am so blessed with this class so far, and I think it's only going to get better. Thank you once again for all that you do and taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us.
Not a problem. Thank you very much, and blessing from Jerusalem. See you all in Jerusalem, and hopefully next time also I'm going to give an opportunity of coming to Jerusalem and seeing with us the fulfillment of the human potential here in Jerusalem. So God bless you all, and see you all in Jerusalem.